Dogman and the Unfrightened Woman. 2 new cases. Case number 1. The Unfrightened Woman and the Dogman in the woods outside Kalamazoo. Dear Scary Stories NYC, recently YouTube suggested one of your videos to me about a woman who was unfrightened in the face of the Dogman. Something very close to a personal experience I had a long time ago that I thought nobody knew about. I was absolutely stunned, and I don't know how they knew this would be of interest to me. I do have a Gmail account, but I don't think I ever told anyone about my experience in an email. Possibly it was just a coincidence that they sent me that video, but in any case, I feel that I've got to tell you about what happened to me. You see, I also had a Dogman experience that was interrupted by a strange woman who was dressed as a cowgirl, same as in the story on your channel. I'd like to tell you the story starting in the beginning, then proceeding through to the end. This way, hopefully, I'll remember all the details, or most of them. This all happened to me in the early 1990s, which is a long time ago, obviously, so I'm probably going to be remembering parts of it wrong without even knowing it. As far as I can remember, though, this is the way it happened. I had been living with this girl we can call Elvira because she was well endowed. That was what she went as for Halloween 2 years in a row, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. She bought me tickets to see Nirvana for my birthday, which was a couple months prior, but the show was to take place in later October. She broke up with me and kicked me out of our apartment earlier than that, so technically I was homeless and living in a tent in the woods by a creek when this happened. But since it occurred on the way home to my tent from that Nirvana show, I can at least tell you the exact date when all of this went down. That ticket stub is the only thing I managed to save from the 1990s, and it says Wednesday, October 27th, 1993, at Wings Stadium in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I managed to travel to and from the event using public transportation, and by the time I got back to the closest bus stop to where I was camping, it was well after midnight. To say it was dark would be an understatement, but I had stashed my high-powered flashlight under a big rock near the bus stop to use on my way back. I didn't want to risk bringing it with me to the show since it might have been confiscated on the way in. Wiping the muddy dirt off the big square old thing, I set off for the woods. Although I had only been camping there for about 4 days, I felt I had a pretty good sense of where everything was. I didn't really feel I needed the flashlight except to point at my feet and watch my footing. I knew which trees to walk past, which trees to turn left at, and so forth. I had actually practiced the walk to the bus stop because I had been anticipating that night for so long. Nirvana was my favorite band at the time, and I felt truly elated to have finally gotten to see them perform. You must have some equivalent in your own life when you felt like you were walking on air after a concert. I found it a bit hard to hear what was happening around me because my ears were still ringing from the show, which was of course very loud. I saw Kurt Cobain play a guitar solo by throwing his body into a large amp, creating deafening feedback in the process. It was pretty glorious. That ticket was definitely the nicest thing that particular girlfriend ever did for me. Because I was actually in a good mood for a change, and also probably because my hearing was so dulled, I wasn't really paying all that much attention to my surroundings. I mean, I was watching where I was going, but I wasn't looking around, and I just assumed I'd be alone in those woods because I always had been before. What I had forgotten, though, was that this was Michigan, home of the infamous Michigan Dogman. And the Dogman comes out at night. I felt his presence before I saw the creature. It was that famous feeling we all know that someone is watching us. I looked up and around into the darkness at first. I did not point my flashlight around. I just peered out into that darkness and I saw eyes. It was hard to see them when I looked directly at them, but in my peripheral vision I thought I could see 2 eyes shining back at me from about 6 or 6.5 feet off the ground. I remember that I took a deep breath and a swallow before lifting my flashlight up to see what was there, partially because I didn't want anything to be there at all. I tilted the light up a bit slower than I knew I should have. The light reached up far enough to show me 2 dog legs, and yes, only 2 dog legs, taking off to their left or my right. I hastened my upward movement of the flashlight, and I saw the upper torso and the muscular arms, all covered in thick fur. I saw the profile of the canine head just before the man-thing disappeared into the foliage, and I wet myself right on the spot. There were a lot of different kinds of reactions I could have had in that moment, such as to run back out to the bus stop. I might also have moved forward. I was so consumed with confusion, though, that I just stood there, perfectly still, but shaking all over, holding the flashlight on the last spot I had seen the Dogman at. The woods were quiet. Even the crickets had quieted down to a large extent. It wasn't like they do in horror movies where the forest went completely silent, but it honestly had quieted down a whole lot. I stood there, enjoying the cool Michigan forest on that late October night. I felt safe in that spot. I had seen the Michigan Dogman, but it had run from me, so that left me feeling safe right there. It also left me scared to take even one step out of that spot. And then I heard something move in the woods to my right, and I know what I thought it was. I thought it was that long-snouted, dog-headed man. Suddenly, I found myself moving uncomfortably ahead, moving my flashlight all around, listening as well as I could for movement anywhere around me in the pitch-dark night. I maneuvered through the woods until I was pretty certain I was just outside of the clearing I was camping in. My heart was beating so hard in my chest, I felt as though I were going to keel over if I had to see that Dogman one more time. He wouldn't even need to attack me, he just had to pop up and say boo. That was what I was thinking. Out from between 2 trees I walked, and there was my tent and my camp about 25 feet in front of me. It was a huge relief, but also pretty depressing. I was sad that this had become my actual home, and I was also unhappy about the fact that the tent didn't look like it could withstand an actual attack from the Dogman, the one that I had briefly seen. I was going to have to hope that the Dogman was able to find easier to catch prey on that night in 1993. I was just going to have to hope he had easier pickings than me. I took one step into that clearing and a loud yip 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 erupted from not 15 feet to my right. I felt like the blood was draining out of my body and straight down into the grass at my feet as my eyes looked up at that big, burly, dog-headed muscle man. It had a light-colored snout and black lips that it pulled back to show off the teeth that proved it was not a vegetarian. I ran forward toward my tent. I knew I had to get inside that tent before the alarmed Dogman grabbed me. I knew that my life depended on it. And so, as I tripped over my own feet and fell on my face, I accepted even before I hit rock bottom that my life was about to end. I say I accepted it, but that didn't mean I was at peace with what was about to happen. I managed to roll over onto my back, and I looked up at the big, hairy, twitchy monster Dogman walking toward me. He reminded me of a boxer in terms of his build. I mean a human heavyweight boxer, not the kind of a dog with that name. He looked like a human on steroids, but it was clear that he was not, in fact, human at all. The upright walking bipedal Michigan Dogman took his time walking toward me, as I slid away on my back, holding my hands out in front of me, screaming like a 6-year-old girl, and not acting in any way like a man. And then I heard a whistle, and the Dogman immediately stood up at attention. He had been growling, but I didn't notice until it stopped. His teeth were now covered again, and he was looking toward the woods where we both heard that whistle coming from. outwalked someone matching the description of the woman from your story. She was tall and thin and wearing a cowboy hat. I did not see her whistle, but it had to have been her doing that from the woods. The Dogman got one look at this woman, and he dropped to all fours and bolted straight ahead of me into the woods. She must have returned to the forest as well, because when I was done watching him leave, I could no longer see her anywhere around, no matter where I shined the flashlight. I want to be clear that I do not know if the Dogman was scared away or if he actually left with the mysterious woman. He ran from me at 12 o'clock, and she was maybe at 1 o'clock or 2. So if he was running away from her in fear, he wasn't running 180 degrees away from her. He was running maybe 20 or 40 degrees away from her. Was he actually running away at all? Or was he doing her unspoken bidding? I honestly didn't know then, and I certainly don't know now. I got in my tent, and I didn't come out till the morning. Then, I took a bus to another place to the southwest that I hoped would be free of the Dogman. Over the years, I've had people tell me that it was an angel that came and saved me from a devil or from the devil. I don't know that this is untrue, but I certainly at the time did not think I was in the presence of Satan, nor did I think I was in the presence of an angel. That doesn't mean I wasn't, but I thought they were a monster and a young woman. I thought they were flesh and blood and real. But there is that passage in the Bible that talks about entertaining angels unaware. That implies that they seem just like ordinary people when you interact with them. So maybe she was an angel, because I guess I wouldn't know if she were. That's about all I can remember of it now. Honestly, I've told the story so many times to friends that I think I remember the telling of it better than the original events concerning the unfrightened woman and the Dogman in the woods outside Kalamazoo. The Unfrightened Woman and the Dogman, case number 2. The Mosinee Monster meets his match. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I was quite excited watching your recent episode about that cowgirl who was not afraid of the Dogman. This same thing happened to me when I was a teenager in Wisconsin in the 1980s. It may very well have been the same woman, and the incident also involved a Dogman. My father and I had run away from my evil stepmother and were hiding out in the woods in Dad's mobile home. Specifically, we were somewhere deep in the Big O Plain Woods State Natural Area, which is right across the water from the George W. Meade State Wildlife Area and the Meade Conifer Bogs State Natural Area. If something weird was going to be living in Wisconsin, this seems to me to be a likely spot to find it. It's so rural that even Google Street View hasn't gone there. But no, we weren't there to stake out cryptids. We were just trying to live our lives without being screeched at. And then, the next thing you knew, I was being screeched at by a big old gray Dogman. I had actually fallen asleep in the woods one afternoon, and that's literally what happened. I was suddenly being shrieked at max volume, and I didn't know what was going on. When I opened my eyes, things got worse, because it was some kind of a man with a dog head on top. By on top, I mean on top of his neck, which was a living neck, not a costume. The head also looked real and alive, except that it looked like a dog's head. I never had any impression that I was looking at a costume. I could see up close and personal that this was a real living creature. I could see parts of the insides of its mouth as it roared. I could smell its breath. I shrieked in return in an involuntary manner. It was more my body automatically shouting in surprise than me consciously making a decision about it. I also got up and ran away from the creature on tired legs, tripping and falling hard into a tree trunk. It hurt, but it also allowed me to right myself and begin racing a broken field path between the trees in those woods. I was at full speed before I was really awake. It slowly dawned on me that I was being chased further and further away from my father's trailer. The Dogman pursued me, swiping at me with sharp claws and occasionally barking loudly to keep me rattled and keep me running. This was sport to the Dogman, but it was life and death for me. Soon I wasn't sure where I was at all. I was completely lost and I was growing increasingly tired. My pace slowed significantly, and the Dogman was aware of my weakness. I heard his growling and snarling anger growing worse, yet I couldn't increase my speed to get away. I felt the beast leap onto me from behind and I fell forward into the dirt, exhausted and prepared to be torn apart and eaten alive. It was the worst moment of my life, as I was about to be ended far too soon, at least in my opinion. It would have been the saddest moment I had ever experienced if I had the energy left to get sad with. I heard the creature's growling in my ear. I felt his hot breath on that side of my face. One of his paws pinned my shoulder to the ground. He was only putting a portion of his weight on me, but I may as well have had a Mack truck parked on top of me because I wasn't going anywhere. And then I heard what sounded to me at first like the sound of a young teenage boy saying some word or some name that I did not recognize. The weight lifted off of my back and I heard the Dogman trot off. Shifting my weight to look around, I saw the great beast trotting like a dog on all fours as it took up a new position, about 10 yards away from me. He was staring forward, and when I looked where he was staring, I saw that he had locked eyes with a striking young woman. That must have been who spoke that word earlier. It must not have been a teenage boy. It must have been this woman. She was standing with the sun at her back, which gave her a very powerful and mystical kind of a look to me. She appeared to be a Native American, with long, straight black hair, descending past her hips. She did have a cowboy hat on, just as the woman in your prior story did. I don't really recall the rest of her outfit, but I think she had jeans on. She had some kind of casual or work outfit on with pants, that's all I can remember for sure. I propped myself up on one elbow and watched as the woman stared into the eyes of that large canine, and he stared right back into her eyes. I couldn't tell what was going to happen next. The two of them seemed intensely involved with their staring, and they didn't move a muscle as they did so. If I had happened on the scene in that moment, I might have wondered if they were wax figures. That's how still they were. I watched, expectantly, as nothing at all happened. It dawned on me that I might not like what happened next. What if the two of them engaged in some kind of violent battle? What if I ended up a casualty of their war? Might it not make more sense for me to exit stage left while the two of them were so wrapped up in each other's eyes? Yes, I agreed with myself, it would make excellent sense to leave. And so, I pulled my aching body up off the forest floor and I painfully staggered away. I was still lost, but it made more sense for me to go be lost somewhere else. I don't know how long I wandered before I accidentally found my way back to camp, but it couldn't have been more than an hour. I wasn't all that lost, as it turned out. My emotions were dulled, and that helped me get through it. Sometimes you're just too tired to waste energy on panicking, and that actually helps you get unlost and back where you need to be. I have to admit I felt joyous inside when I saw my dad's trailer, and even happier when I saw him. But it sure was hard to show emotions. I just needed to get some food and crash out for the night. Dad was very unhappy with me for being late, and every time I wearily tried to explain what had happened, he cut me off to yell at me some more. He told me he wasn't interested in excuses, and I told him I didn't have any. I only had the truth. Dad was pretty angry, and he was entirely uninterested in hearing stories about the Dogman and the wild, unfrightened lady of Mosinee, Wisconsin. So was that woman real? Was she some sort of angel? Was she a goddess or higher being of some sort? Was she a product of my overactive imagination? Was she some other kind of entity expressing itself as the female with the cowboy hat? I didn't know then, and even though you've uncovered a similar experience from someone else in a different place and time, I feel no closer to understanding who or what she was. What if she's a human archetype, like what Carl Jung used to write about? What if she's an expression of nature itself? I doubt she's an ordinary human, but if she is, then she's a legend. And that's basically all I can add to the growing mythos surrounding the unfrightened woman and the Dogman. Anger the Dogman, he'll throw you 40 yardis, unless he finds out that you're a friend of Pardis. That's right, today's executive producer is Pardis. You need to stay on his good side if you want to keep the Dogman off your tail. And the way we stay on Pardis's good side is by sharing with him our weekly Sunday secret uncensored stories, far too wild to run on this channel. You can see them too. Just join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Or else do what Pardis did and click the join link under this or any of our videos to become a channel member. And now here's our spokesdog Henry Lee Dogman to fill in any deets I may have left out. Hank? Thanks for watching till the end. If you liked what you saw, please consider clicking like on the video or sharing it with your friends and family that you think might also be interested. If you would like to see more of our work, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon next to the subscribe button so that YouTube will alert you when we put out a new video. To become a channel member and gain access to our special perks, you can click that join link under each of our videos. Another option is to join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. You can join for as little as 99 cents on YouTube or $1.50 at peterbernard.com. And that gains you access to our weekly secret uncensored episodes. If you'd like to see our 21 hours of archives of uncensored Dogman stories, then please join at the $3 level or above. To get to watch our shows in advance of the public, please join at our $10 level. That gets you all the perks. If you join our channel memberships, you need to check our community page here on YouTube in order to get the links to the secret videos and other perks. If you're in the PayPal subscribers club, Peter will email you all the news and links himself. Once joining the PayPal club, which is Peter's homemade club, please give him a chance to see that you've joined and to compose you a personal welcome email, as none of that is automated. But whichever you join, we'll name you an executive producer for the next available episode. Do you have a scary experience that you'd like to share with us? You can email us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or call our Scary Stories voicemail hotline at 804-LA-SCARY. That's 804-537-2279. It's a Google voicemail box, so that means it keeps cutting off after every 3 minutes. If your story is longer than that, please keep calling back and we can piece it together on our end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.